Hello everybody, this is Valencia and welcome to my channel Balloons and Business, where I show you the business of balloon and event decor. So today I'm going to show you how I made this S-shaped balloon garland setup from beginning to end. I'm going to show you how I set up my backdrop stand, how I attached my neon oh baby sign, how I made my balloon garland, and how I placed my faux flowers. So if you want to see how I made this, just stay tuned. So the first thing I did was assemble my backdrop frame. I got this from Fashion and Fascinating. I will leave the information to this frame in the description box below this video. It is very easy to assemble. Most of the parts come pre-assembled already, and all you do is just click the little knobs and match the numbers. It only took me 5 minutes to set up. After I set up my frame, I got my backdrop cover here. I got this off of Amazon, and this is a sage green. You want to make sure that you get the cover as close to the size of your backdrop as possible. If you have to choose between getting a bigger cover than the frame or a smaller one, always get bigger. That way you can just kind of tie and, pin in the back to make the cover fit the frame. But you definitely don't want to get a cover that's too small for the frame, because that can't really be helped, and that's when you get the gaps on the bottom and all of that. But make sure you size your frame first before buying the cover so you know exactly what size to get. And this frame is 7.2 feet tall by 4 feet wide. So one of the colors I'm using is going to be a double stuff. So that's Decomex White, and this is Sempertex Satin Pearl. And I'm going to take the Decomex White and I'm going to put it onto a pencil. And you can use a pencil pen, a small plastic pole, anything. And then I'm going to take the Sempertex Satin Pearl and put it on top of the white. Now when blowing up the balloon, I'm going to use the inside neck, which is the white balloon, to blow these two balloons up. I'm going to blow them up at the same time. And these are 11-inch balloons. Then I'm going to press them against the surface of the couch, so I can underinflate them and round them out so I don't get that coney shape. And then I'm going to use the necks of the inside balloons, which is the white balloons, and tie them together into dupes. So now I'm going to take an 11-inch balloon and an 18-inch balloon, and these are the double stuff colors again. And I'm going to underinflate them and round them out. And then I'm going to tie these two together into a dupe. And then I'm going to twist together 3 dupes. So I'm going to twist together 2 11-inch dupes and 1 dupe with the 11 and the 18-inch balloon. And I'm going to double twist them together into a cluster. So that's a total of 6 balloons. And I'm going to do the same thing to this eucalyptus color balloon. So this is Sempertex Fashion Eucalyptus. Now I did make a mistake and ended up getting the wrong 18-inch color. So that's actually the Eucalyptus Pastel Dust Green for the 18-inch balloon, and then the Fashion Eucalyptus for 11-inch. So that was my mistake. But this setup was not going to be done for a client. I'm just doing it for you guys, so it's all right. So I'm just going to twist those together into a cluster. And then I only had the 11-inch Reflex Gold balloon, so I'm going to blow up 6 of those balloons, tie them together into dupes, and twist them together into a cluster. So now I'm going to show you how I attach my neon sign using 15-pound fishing line. You see that hole right there? I'm just going to triple tie that fishing line through that hole. You want to make sure you at least triple tie it. You can tie it more if you want, but the fishing line is very fine, and if you only double tie it, it will fall out of the knot, and you don't want that. And I'm going to cut about 2 to 3 feet of excess fishing line, about an arm's length or so. And then I'm going to take a backdrop clip and I'm going to tie a knot. And you want to triple tie that knot and then put it over the mouth of the backdrop clip. And then you want to just wrap that around the legs of the clip and around the mouth of the clip like 4 or 5 times to get it on there nice. And I did that on both sides. And then you want to clip it onto your backdrop. Now this clip is about 2.5 inches, but you want about 2.5 to 3 inches at least for your backdrop clip. And then I'm going to connect the little connector for the plug. And I'm going to try to make sure that I get that clear plug on the back of that old baby sign. So I want it to run straight across the back of the sign, and I'm using a safety pin to pin it up on the side. Then once I pin it up, I'm going to adjust that cord because I don't want that cord sagging. Now you can adjust the sign by adjusting the clips at the top. So now I'm going to be attaching my balloons to my backdrop. Those are 260 balloons, and I'm just going to double tie the 260 into a rubber band. And I'm going to take a safety pin, put the 260 into the safety pin. Then I'm going to attach that safety pin in the front of the backdrop, just a few inches from the edge. Then I'm going to wrap a balloon from one cluster inside of that 260 rubber band. So now I'm going to take another 260. I'm going to tie the ends together into a rubber band again. And then I'm going to wrap that 260 around a couple balloons in another cluster. I decided to go with the same color cluster for the bottom. Then I'm going to wrap that same 260 balloon around a couple balloons in the first cluster that I attached to the backdrop. Notice how I decided to attach that cluster directly to the left of the first cluster. And then I'm just going to arrange the balloons a little bit so that those 18 inches are kind of spread out a little bit. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make my 260 rubber band, wrap it around a couple balloons in the cluster. And then in the very center of that bigger cluster, I'm going to attach that white cluster to the eucalyptus green in the very center, because this is how we're going to start that S shape. We're going to start at the very center. Then this gold cluster, I'm going to go right there on the right side, the far right side, so that the balloons are going to start going inward. So when you're making an S shape, it goes in, and out, right? So I'm going to do the same thing. Take the 260, wrap it around a couple balloons in that eucalyptus cluster, and then I'm going to go out. So the outer edge of that gold cluster, I'm going to attach that eucalyptus cluster to. And then I'm going to attach another cluster of eucalyptus balloons to the outer edge of that eucalyptus cluster. Then I'm going to take another safety pin and a 260, tie the ends of that 260 together to another rubber band, and then attach that safety pin to the mid height of the backdrop, and then wrap it around one of the balloons in that eucalyptus cluster, the first one. And this is how I'm attaching my balloons to the backdrop while I'm attaching the balloons to each other. So then I'm going to make that white cluster go back in. So I'm going to put on the far right edge of that eucalyptus cluster. So you see me forming that S shape, going out, and back in. When attaching that gold cluster, I'm going to go right back out. So I'm going to go on the outer right edge of that white cluster. Now I decided to attach another gold cluster because I figured that other cluster wasn't big enough for me to really see the gold at the top. So I attached another cluster, and notice how I moved that original gold cluster back to the right because I didn't like how that shape was looking. It was looking less S. It was looking more bulky. So I shifted that first gold cluster back over to the right of the white, and then I attached that second gold cluster to the right of the first gold cluster. So now I'm just going to attach that to the actual backdrop. So again, I'm doing a safety pin, clipping it on there at the very top. Then I'm going to wrap that 260 around one balloon in the gold cluster to make sure that the balloon garland is also attached to the backdrop while I'm attaching the clusters to each other. Notice how the balloons at the very top, I'm going to start pushing them down so that they can fit nice and snug in between that backdrop stand. So now I'm going to attach this eucalyptus cluster to that gold cluster at the top. And that's my last cluster I'm adding at the top. So now I'm going to readjust this old baby sign because you can't see it on that far left side where the white balloons are. So I'm kind of moving it over. So I'm moving both of the clips over to the right. And then I'm also unwrapping some of the fishing line so that it could come down just a little bit and making sure that the sign is nice and level. And I just rearranged a few balloons in the back. So now I'm going to blow up my 5-inch balloons. I'm going to use those 5-inch nozzles and put them on the bigger nozzles. I'm going to take 2 balloons, blow them up. I'm going to underinflate them to about 3 inches, then tie them together into dupes. Then I'm going to take another dupe and twist them together into a cluster of 4 balloons. Then I'm going to take a 260 balloon, cut it in half, and then tie one end of that half of the 260 to one of the clusters and leave the other end out. Now for my double stuffed color, I'm going to use my pencil once again, and I'm going to take the 5-inch white balloon, put it on the inside, and then take that 5-inch satin pearl balloon, put it on top. And then I'm going to use my manual balloon pump to blow them up because it's harder to do the electric balloon pump for double stuffed 5 inches. They're really hard to blow up. I'm going to underinflate them to about 3 inches, tie them together into dupes using the inside necks again. And then I'm going to wrap 2 of these dupes together into a cluster of 4 balloons. And when you're twisting together your clusters, make sure you double twist them so they're nice and secure. So now I'm going to add my 5-inch decorators by taking the other end of that half of a 260, wrapping it around one balloon in the pre-existing balloon garland, and then tying the 260 into itself. And that's how I am adding my 5-inch decorators. And I'm adding them at a ratio of 1 5-inch decorator per bigger cluster. So 1 smaller cluster per bigger cluster. That way you don't get too many 5-inch balloons and make the balloon garland look clustered, but it's just enough to make it look nice, finished, and polished. Another thing I wanted to know is that I did add another cluster of balloons on the outside right there to the left because I wanted the bottom to kind of flare out a little bit. And to make sure that the cord to the neon sign wasn't sagging, I did move that safety pin further in on the backdrop so that it wasn't sagging. And I pulled it, just pull it and make sure that it's, straight across and not sagging below the sign. Now I'm going to be adding some flowers. So I took a bunch of faux flowers and I used my empty balloon bags, but you can use like sandwich bags, and I put the ends of those faux flowers into that sandwich bag so that the ends will not pop the balloons. And I put them in bunches. In order for you to really see the flowers on the garland, you need to have several of them in a bunch. And here is the finished product to this S-shaped balloon garland setup. Just a reminder that I will leave links to the materials that I use in the description box below this video. So if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, go ahead on and like it, and please subscribe, and you'll get notifications on future videos on balloon and event decor. And until next time, I will see you guys later.